Hi, my name is Caroline Stocks of Pig Health Today, and we're speaking with Derald Holtkamp, who's a professor of swine production medicine at Iowa State University. Derald, thank you very much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Now, we're talking about PRRS classification. So back in 2009, AASV and the USDA, they proposed the classification of pig herds according to their PRRS status. What prompted that decision?
Well, it was a number of things. We had been working on a PRRS risk assessment, biosecurity risk assessment for 2 or 3 years before that. One of the frustrations we had was lack of ability to sort of define herds, and everybody was using a different language, and some people would use the term negative in different ways and naive in different ways. And so we had kind of pushed for to try to get a standard definition, standard set of definitions. Then the committee met and we got it going from there, and ended up putting together a proposal that was passed by the AASV board of directors then in 2010, and got that published then the year after. And so that was kind of the genesis of it. Our original objective was really just to have a clear set of definitions that everybody agreed to, so that we didn't always have to ask, well, what do you mean by that, right? And it ended up being, I think, much bigger than that, in that it really, what it did is create kind of a roadmap where, again, we have destinations now where if our goal for PRRS is to control the virus, then we know we're going to positive, stable. And now with the new classification, we get a second potential destination that would be a positive, unstable, but very low prevalence. And then for elimination, our destination was category 4. So kind of that roadmap was there on how to get there, and then we knew where we were going. And it was, I think what it did was, again, going back to definitions, it served as a way for veterinarians to communicate not only with each other, but especially with their producers, and to communicate to them, get everybody kind of on the same page, everybody understood where they were going.
Now, in recent years, there have been some calls to modify the system. Why is that?
Well, several reasons. One is we've recently had the emergence or development of some new sample types like processing fluids and family oral fluids. And so there was a desire to maybe try to incorporate some of those sample types into the supporting evidence to either promote a herd into a category. And then there was also this is not new. There was debate all along about positive, stable category 2. That was probably the most contentious debate that we had. We probably spent 75% of the time debating that category in the first go around. And really the issue there is how much evidence is enough, right? And to be able to classify a herd as stable. And those herds are characterized by the ability to consistently wean a negative pig. And we all have experience with herds that go along for a period of time with pigs that are negative at weaning, and then all of a sudden they start to have some positives. And then another thing was to have some supporting evidence or criteria for supporting evidence to maintain a herd in a category once it's there. In the original system, that we didn't develop any any criteria to maintain a herd. So once it got there, the only thing that would really knock it out was an outbreak, right? And so now there's some continuing diagnostic requirements to maintain a herd in a category as well. So, and then the final thing was probably development of some new diagnostic tests. So there's some now molecular tests, whole genome sequencing or sequencing that's being used a lot more than it was back then. And then some clamping PCRs and things like that.
So you're on part of a ASV committee now that's been tasked with revisiting these regulations. What actually prompted the decision to look at them now?
In 2018, the ASV PRRS Task Force Committee in March of during the annual meeting of the ASV met and voted then at that time to readdress the classification system. So I think it was all those things I just mentioned kind of built up over time, and the committee just decided it was time to take another look at those. And so they actually put together what we call a task force, a PRRS classification system task force. Probably the most significant change was some modifications to the actual categories. And so in the past, or in the original system, positive, unstable category 1 was a single category. And there was a lot of discussion among the task force members about how some herds, breeding herds, just kind of get stuck in that unstable category, but at a very low prevalence, and they just can't quite get them to the positive stable. But when you look at the production, both in the sow herd as well as the downstream pigs, it's not too bad in those herds. In fact, it's very, very acceptable in many cases. And so I think there was a desire to acknowledge that may be a destination for control for some of these herds that really struggle to kind of stabilize and consistently wean negative pigs. As long as they can do that fairly consistently and every now and then have a positive, then they wanted a home. We basically wanted a home for those herds. And so that new category now is, or subcategory you might call it, is positive unstable category 1B. So category 1A now is positive unstable with a high prevalence. So herds that are immediately after an outbreak are just naturally going to fall in that 1A category, whereas herds, again, that have spent some time working to try to stabilize or try to at least reduce the prevalence of positive pigs at weaning are going to be in that category 1B. And so then that was a big change. And then the second change to the categories was in category 2. And in the original classification system, the committee that put that together had a lot of discussion about whether to try to account for vaccination or not. So we've created now a positive stable category 2, and then now what's called a 2VX or 2 vaccinated. And so the difference between those two is really in the 2VX, they can use modified live vaccine in the breeding herd. So that was the two main changes. Category 3, category 4, basically no change to those, the provisional negative and negative herds. Those are the same as they were before. And then the third major change was the inclusion of some of these alternative sample types, for example, processing fluids and family oral fluids. And so in a nutshell, processing fluids has been incorporated in the criteria or supporting evidence to promote a herd into a category, and family oral fluids and processing fluids have both been added to the criteria or supporting evidence to maintain a herd in a category.
So in terms of producers and production systems, how might they be affected by these new recommendations?
Well, my hope is that they sort of see it as a kind of a natural evolution here, and it's not too disruptive. One of the objectives we had was not to sort of reinvent the wheel. We kind of felt like it was working pretty well, and we didn't want to reinvent it. But I think probably the major thing will be just recognize that category 1B can be controlled, right? And I think a lot of times what that created was a mindset that if I can't get the positive stable, I'm failing. Whereas having this category 1B is now a destination for control, I think gives some producers a place to go there without and feel like they've met their goal.
And looking ahead then, where do you think future challenges or future changes might have to take place?
We seem to be developing these new sample types fairly rapidly, and so who knows what's coming next. I also think that there may be a role for whole genome sequencing down the road here, especially in trying to sort out vaccinated versus non-vaccinated. The biggest thing that could happen is that get some of these diagnostic tests cheaper and make it easier for producers to be able to sample these herds. We've done more and more diagnostics, but there's a cost to that, of course, right? And so I think anything that can be done to lower the cost of that will allow us to sort of increase or expand the supporting evidence. So that's probably the main thing to look forward to.